Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and training camp has officially kicked off for the San Francisco 49ers. No, there's no practice. That happens tomorrow on Wednesday, but General Manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan talked to the media for the first time since the NFL draft and gave us a lot of information I know myself and you out there are dying to know about. We'll get into Brandon Aiyuk's recovery. Did Jauan Jennings request a formal trade? What's happening with Ben Bartch and Ricky Pearsall? And what is the latest on Deommodore Lenoir's legal situation? Going to get into all of that today on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe on the audio podcasting platforms. Leave us that 5-star audio review, and let's dive into John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's kickoff to the 2025 training camp session for your and mine San Francisco 49ers. Starting things off with wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. A ton of wide receiver news today. And let's start with Brandon Aiyuk. And I know many of you out there, it seems like the sentiment towards Aiyuk is almost always negative. And I get a lot of that is because of what transpired last offseason and the contract stuff and the trade requests that he did ask for. But he's still on San Francisco, and hopefully at the maybe tail end of the regular season or maybe in the middle of the year, he can come back and give San Francisco a big boost as they hopefully push for a playoff spot this season. But we got arguably our biggest report, our biggest straightforward, he's not gonna be ready by week 1 statement by John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. The full quote is here. Brandon Aiyuk currently is not anywhere close to having a concrete timeline. Now, yes, this is Lynch and Shanahan somewhat hedging their bets in case he comes back earlier, but like we have been saying the entire offseason, there's almost no way Brandon Aiyuk comes back from his injury week 1 of this year. The odds of that are so slim. It may not sound like it, but this is John and Kyle essentially telling us we have no idea when he'll come back. They hope it's soon, but they have no idea when he'll come back. He, again, did not just damage his ACL, didn't just damage his PCL. Or his MCL, excuse me. It was an entire annihilation of his knee. It's going to take longer than 1 year to come back from that. I have always targeted the Week 10 home game against the Rams as the return date for him. That is the after MetLife Stadium road trip. Don't want to play him there. Just please don't do that. Get him back at home Week 10 in November. He'll have the entire year and an extra month or so to have to recover from the injury. And I think for Aiyuk, really, whether it is his own camp or San Francisco's camp, you don't want to rush him back in any sense of the word, because if Aiyuk comes back early in San Francisco's perspective and gets hurt again or doesn't really show signs of who he once was, his trade stock is in the toilet. There ain't no way someone's taking that contract for a player that may not be good anymore. And if you're Aiyuk, and let's say you may want to get traded, or let's say you want to reestablish yourself and not get cut in the future, well, you want to be healthy and play well, whether it is late October, in my case, early November, and so on and so forth. So it does seem like Brandon Aiyuk, the rumors, or at least the consensus thought that he may come back in week 1 is just not going to happen. They did say that their relationship is good. I know much has been made of the social media posts he's done on Instagram and some of the YouTube comments he has made on the community tab. And, sometimes those are actual meaningful things. And sometimes, like Aiyuk said himself, I'm just having fun. But it does seem like they are in good standing right now as the training camp sessions begin. Jauan Lynch also said that Aiyuk will do his rehab at the facility with San Francisco's coaching staff and their trainers, which may or may not be a good thing, knowing how many injuries this team has had in the last couple years. But nonetheless, it seems like Aiyuk, the drama there, the injury, we're getting a much clearer picture as to when he may return, and they're actually not on bad terms at all. They're in a good headspace. He's getting paid. They're hoping he comes back somewhat towards the end of the season. But right now, no concrete timeline. Jauan Lynch, like I've said over and over again, reiterated, he had a very serious knee injury to a point of there was a lot of damage done and so much had to be done to repair what happened inside his knee. So maybe the best outlook is you hope he comes back early, maybe in late September, early October, but I'm still going to hold firm to him coming back week 10 against the Los Angeles Rams. Moving on to the next injury news, that being of wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, the guy who you and I in San Francisco are hoping can be the Aiyuk replacement early on in the season, as they don't have Aiyuk to begin the year. Pearsall surprised a lot of us. He missed most of the OTAs and minicamp sessions with a hamstring injury. We were told by Kyle Shanahan that he was going to be ready by the day 1 of training camp, and then a couple days ago, he got put on the PUP list, and we all said, whoa, was there a setback? Is it more serious? We don't know, and it led to a lot of maybe over-dramatic thinking, if you will, towards Pearsall's hamstring, but knowing how important he is to this year and getting off to a hot start, it's a major concern if he can't be out there. We did get some insight into not what happened, but the severity of it. I think it was Kim Inman. He said that it was a quote-unquote bad hamstring injury. I'll change that wording and say it was a pretty serious hamstring injury for Pearsall, which I think he had one last year in training camp or in the OTA session prior to getting shot as well. So he isn't a stranger to those, but you can tell they want to take things cautiously with him in the early portions of OTA's minicamp and training camp now underway in Santa Clara. But the good news is, despite maybe having a bad hamstring injury, Ricky Pearsall is expected to return off the PUP list soon. There was not a given date or a certain day listed, but it does seem like that Ricky Pearsall's injury, although is serious, he is towards the tail end of the recovery process for him. So a really good sign for Pearsall, because we were all thrown through a loop saying, what the heck's going on out there? Like, where's Pearsall? Why is he injured and how hurt is he actually? But it does seem like there is some good news, which is funny because Kyle Shanahan always downplays the injuries or just never gives us the straightforward truth. And today, with a muted press conference on YouTube and Twitter, it was really hard to know what they were saying, but it does seem like Pearsall is going to be back. My assumption is probably going to miss the first week or so, then jump into when pads come on in a few days. I don't think he'll practice tomorrow. My assumption is at the end of the week or the beginning of next week. That is my, fingers crossed. That's the kind of the best case scenario for me, but it does not seem like Pearsall is going to miss a large chunk of time for the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to go to the YouTube comments here for a second. Tommy Huxley says, Flynn, what's going on, Tommy Huxley? In regards to Brandon Aiyuk, he says, learned the hard way to not pay diva wide receivers. I think it's a Pinor or Pinor in the YouTube comments as well. What's up? Happy you're here. Kawachipto says, Tommy has yet to call us fairies. Man has fallen off. Tommy, get the fairies out, brother. Get the fairy dust out. We need it here in the YouTube chat. Training camp is back. I need all your energy targeted into calling us fairies every single show that we do live. Papa J says Sterling is back. Papa J, we are back for another year of San Francisco 49er football. Hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great Tuesday afternoon. I'm not sure if any of you out there got a chance to watch the press conference today. Certainly couldn't hear it because it was muted the entire time, which just is a travesty for the fan base out there. I will also not be there tomorrow. Strawberry Reacts. I'm in Southern California currently, but hoping to make my way to Northern California soon to see the boys live and in person. But, man, great day. I was so excited. I work from home. I covered the MLB for Athlon Sports, and I was like, babe, Niners press conference. I have to work, a little double extra time today. And she was like, great, I don't care. As long as we can have, some quiet time and, you not be yelling and screaming because the Niners are back on TV. But then I go, it's muted. What an anticlimactic beginning to what's hopefully a really, really good season. But it very fitting for how dead the Niners offseason was, getting Purdy and Warner and Kittle locked up so early. Very fitting that a dud of an offseason for them, which was a good offseason, mind you, is a dud beginning to training camp. But want to keep things moving along on the show today because we got even more wide receiver news. I'm going to say the Jauan Jennings update for a little later in the show because I want to talk about two other updates we got. One of them being DeMarcus Robinson. We have been sitting idly by, waiting for the NFL to either suspend DeMarcus Robinson or not suspend DeMarcus Robinson for a DUI back in November. And they have sat on their hands, and they have been waiting and waiting and waiting. And it seems like we're going to have to wait even longer because according to Jauan Lynch, the NFL has yet to make a decision on any disciplinary actions for DeMarcus Robinson. So that's fines, that's suspensions, that's whatever else may come with that. The legal system has kind of come around to things. I think he got probation or something like that, but nothing too crazy or absurd like jail time or whatnot.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
But the one thing that worries me here is the NFL is going to drag their feet, and he'll go through the entire training camp process, the entire preseason. San Francisco will think, okay, we're going to have our guy week 1, then bang, pop for 1 to 3 games, if not more, hopefully not. But I just would rather have, and I'm sure San Francisco would rather have an answer sooner than later because you don't want to prepare for week 1 thinking you have DeMarcus Robinson, then bang, you don't. I'm hoping the NFL doesn't drag their feet for too long. I'm not going to assume the suspension, if he gets one, is going to be big. I just don't see them giving him like a month or 6 games. I think if anything, 1 or 2 games should be enough. I'm just a little worried that they took a year to get to the Rashee Rice stuff. He came back, got hurt, I think, against the Chargers early last season. Then he couldn't play. But they just now figured things out with him. Is it going to take a year into November when San Francisco is hopefully in a playoff race and gearing up for a long run? Is that when they're going to pop him for something? I'm certainly hoping not. So kind of an annoyance with the NFL, which isn't surprising. They never really seem to have their head on straight on certain things, but really annoyed here. And really for me as a content creator / journalist / podcaster that follows the team, it's more about, okay, like when you're constructing your roster and you're making your roster decisions, and even for San Francisco in that matter, like why, like they would like to know if they can either, if he's going to be, not a part of the, 53-man roster, or they can, carry somebody else. Like this really has to come quickly in the next month or so because it's roster cutdown day in almost 1 month. You cannot continue to have this thing carry on. Got to figure this thing out. So I am optimistic the NFL can act quickly and get things done, but it's been a very awkward, lingering kind of black cloud over DeMarcus Robinson, who right now will be this team's number 3 receiver, barring injury, to begin the season. We also signed, or the San Francisco 49ers also signed today, Equanimeous St. Brown. If you don't know, he is the brother of Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. They host a podcast together, which I am eagerly not looking to listen to every week if he makes the team. But I don't think this is anything more than a camp body. If Jennings may or may not hold out, Robinson, let's say he does get suspended, Aiyuk's not going to be out there, and Pearsall is already injured, you want to protect your guys and not have to throw guys out there. They often do give their veterans rest days, so the more bodies, the better in the receiver room, knowing how many injuries they already have. But Equanimeous St. Brown is, to me, one of the smallest, or one of the receivers that moves the needle the least. I think the comment I saw on X or Twitter today was he has more vowels in his name than he does receptions the last 2 seasons. And going to his stats and his box score, Equanimeous St. Brown has played a total of 9 games the last 2 years, only has 5 receptions for 62 yards in his entire career. He only has 63 receptions, under 1,000 yards, and just 2 touchdowns. So if someone's trying to sell you on the idea of Equanimeous St. Brown making the team or being a great player for San Francisco, pump the brakes. and look, maybe I'm wrong, and he somehow just has this late career burst, which if he does, awesome. But it's just more of a camp body. Keep the bench warm and keep star players off the field when they don't have to be out there. But he does fulfill the George Odom spot on the roster. Odom was released. Brown is now signed to the San Francisco 49ers to fill a void in the wide receiver room. I also want to get to a small Brock Purdy update, and it kind of joins in with the Jauan Jennings talks. But first, I want to remind you to go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. To me, it is the best place to find tickets for sporting events and concerts. They have the easiest way to find good seats and bad seats. Green means good. Red is a bad deal for you. Don't pick those. Find yourself a green deal. Get yourself some tickets to watch my San Francisco 49ers this year. Or as summer comes to a conclusion in the next month or so, get out there, go to a concert, and use that promo code as well to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And yes, Strawberry reacts. Yes. Don't get excited, peeps. Equanimeous St. Brown is not his brother. He maybe is a quarter of his brother because he is nowhere close to how great Amon-Ra St. Brown is. He's a bigger, slower, unceremoniously cut camp body in the next week or month or so when roster cutdown comes and passes. But let's get to Brock Purdy for a second. He did talk to the media today for a very short spell. He didn't really dive into too much. It seems like he's so laid back and he's so humble. He's not going to dive into and boast about things, but kind of went into working out with Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle and Jacob Cowling and how impressed he is with those guys. But Kyle Shanahan said in his press conference today that Brock Purdy, and I quote, had a hell of an offseason. And so I'm hoping, and I think the expectation should be, you got paid, or going to get paid at least, $53 million on average over the course of the next 4 to 5 seasons. You better come out guns a-blazing, looking like that kind of quarterback. And I think, Brock is a player that I don't think will get affected by the money or the numerical value now tied to his name. He's often talked about, getting back to who he once was in his rookie season, playing more in the structure and scheme of Shanahan's offense. So I don't think we'll see, more of that, playmaker stuff, or at least, you'll see it in short spurts of he can do it when he has to, but not going to force it like he did last year a lot of the times. And I'm not going to say, Brock will be 2023 Brock again, but I do think that we should have higher expectations, although it's hard saying that because he's getting paid a lot of money now. But I do think that we should expect a very good bounce-back season from Brock Purdy. But the reason why I bring him up is because he mentioned the importance of Jauan Jennings. And I think it's really, really understated how important he is to the offense, because Jauan is just so good. The energy's there. He fits the offense so much. He's a great blocker, very reliant, wide receiver, good hands. Someone that almost won the Super Bowl MVP award a couple years ago, and is someone that has kind of fought his way and grinded his way up the depth chart to be what seemingly is a bona fide number 2 wide receiver. Wants to get paid as such, but Brock today talked about how important Jauan is and how hopeful he is things can kind of get done between him and San Francisco. Brock's quote, was, "It's extremely important. I love Jauan Jennings and what he brings to our team and to myself as a quarterback. We've had so much success together." I don't want to marry my thoughts with how I spoke about Brandon Aiyuk last year, saying he's the perfect Brock Purdy wide receiver, and I think overwhelmingly he was in 2023, and the injury happened and the contracts have happened and it derailed what he can be and could be going forward. But I do think Jauan Jennings is almost like having a young quarterback, a rookie, if you will, and having a really good tight end. He is a safety blanket, a guy you can always trust, where it's like the meme of F it, Tyreek Hill's down there somewhere, F it, Randy Moss is down there somewhere. To a certain degree, you can almost say F it, Jauan Jennings is down there somewhere, and he'll make an effort to go up and get it. He'll make a play, and of course he is not those players I already mentioned, but Jauan is just Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistent. You know what you're going to get every single day from him. And I think for a player of his own being, like where he's ascending up the list of receivers and deserves to get paid, and I'm hoping, Jauan was a big benefactor of being there every single day during OTAs and training camp last season, and we saw what he can do when he was there, and the chemistry was there with the team and Brock Purdy. So I'm hoping, with how great San Francisco has done avoiding distractions, getting out in front of things with Purdy and Kittle and Warner's contracts, I have a really high optimism that they're going to get things done pretty quickly here. I doubt JJ's asking for a large chunk of change. I'm going to assume between $12 and $15 million. I think Jauan's pretty smart. I just think he realizes that this could be my last big contract. Knowing I'll be 31 years old in about 3 or 4 years, so it's really important I get paid now because you never know what can happen. He saw what happened to Aiyuk. He's seen what happened to plenty of other guys in the NFL. You think you're going to get paid, you hold things off, and bang, your ACL's gone. So hoping for health, obviously, first, but I'm hoping, like Brock Purdy, that San Francisco can get things done. But let's dive into Jauan Jennings himself in particular here, because Jauan Jennings surprised many of us, including myself, not because he wanted to get paid. I think a lot of us assumed he would be next, or at least next in line, as San Francisco wanted to get things done with him, with his contract. But the report that Adam Schefter made was not misleading, but the way others aggregated that report did misinterpret what Jennings' camp told Adam Schefter. Jauan Jennings never requested a trade, and he still, according to John Lynch, has not formally asked for a trade, which tells me Jauan doesn't want to get traded. Jauan doesn't really want to go and play elsewhere. He's just using the threat of one to get paid a higher salary, which everyone does that now. It's not shocking. But the good thing about this is, and I do think it shows how bought in Jauan is and the team player that he is he has already gone to training camp. He's already there. He's reported for training camp. He's been in the building for a little bit of time now. He took his physical yesterday. Like, he's been there for a handful of days already passed physical. Like, he's cleared, good to go for this season. A lot of the times when guys want a new deal, they don't practice, they don't do physicals, they don't do nothing. Whereas Jauan's like 10 steps ahead of like, look, as soon as we put pen to paper, bang, let's go. Like he wants to get out there and practice. And although John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan both did say they expect Jauan to practice, we'll see. I think if Jauan practices, that is another kind of sign that he is totally bought into what they're selling him, and he believes that his future is in San Francisco. If Jauan does hold out, maybe things get a little more serious, but I really don't think Jauan will take things to the extent of, let's say, a Brandon Aiyuk or Nick Bosa or others that have wanted new deals with this front office. I know San Francisco is reluctant to hand out big deals that are to players they may not see a future in, especially after last offseason and this past offseason with letting so many guys go and cutting guys and carrying so much dead money. But I do think that Jauan is someone you really want to have in your offense. Isn't the fastest guy, isn't the strongest guy, isn't going to go for 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, but you want red zone production. You want a guy that can go up and get it. That's a great blocker. The slot receiver as a blocker is so integral into what this offense does. And I know Shanahan shot for the stars with Jalen Hurd, but he found the solution with Jauan Jennings. He is what Shanahan has always wanted as a slot receiver. And I think it's really hard, or going to be really hard, for them to walk away from that. I think what they will do is give him probably a 2-year deal. So it's this year and then 2 more years following that. I don't think it'll be 3 years. I think what they'll do is they'll raise his guarantees this year and then give him more money the next 2 years. So a 3-year deal in total, if you will, but 2 years tacked on to his current contract now with more guarantees added to this season.
Not all meals are created equal. For instance, breakfast has the spicy egg McMuffin for a limited time, and lunch doesn't. McDonald's breakfast comes first. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I think the one thing Jauan wants is guaranteed money. I think it is. I think he deserves guaranteed money. He's played for so little for so long, and I think he's a player that, you've seen the gradual ascension. It's not a 1-year wonder or a 2-year wonder. This is a gradual ascension up the list of the depth chart and the receivers around the NFL. So I think he gets paid. I think he gets paid pretty quickly. You can tell when John and Kyle are irked and bothered and annoyed with the player or how an agent's going about things. That was the Aiyuk stuff. That was the Nick Bosa stuff. That was, in part the Deebo Samuel thing as well. I didn't get that sense from the body language. Because again, couldn't hear what they were saying, but the body language didn't dictate that there was some distress or some annoyance with how Jauan Jennings has proceeded with his trade or his asking for a new contract before training camp. Could things go awry? Sure. I think if San Francisco drags their feet and things get into, preseason week 1 or preseason game 2 and things still aren't done, that's when I think things get scary. But even then, they do hold some leverage, albeit not much, if Pearsall and Aiyuk and Robinson are going to be out for a portion of the season. But they do hold some leverage in regards to finding Jauan Jennings because he's not getting much money to begin this season anyways. But I do think, like Papa J says here, the Niners need to sign JJ as soon as possible before he gets more expensive. I don't think he'll get more expensive now, but I think with the escalating receiver market, eventually it's going to pop. And I think that popping may result in Aiyuk getting traded after this year, which I think they really want to do. And I think a big part of that is if you want to trade Aiyuk, you sign Jauan Jennings. Well, the writing's on the wall there for me. Now that does come into play. How does Pearsall look and how does he progress in year number 2? And I think he should, barring injury. But even then, even if you want to keep Aiyuk and you have Pearsall, sign Jauan Jennings. It doesn't have to be 2 years and $36 million. It can be 2 years and 30, 2 years and 24. I don't think JJ's asking for a break the bank style contract. I simply just think he wants financial security. And I don't want my comments to be misconstrued by saying this: we all love Jauan Jennings, but you can't replace Aiyuk with JJ. No. Jauan Jennings is not going to replace Aiyuk 1-for-1. In my mind, the strengths, the skill set of Ricky Pearsall is who you would assume would replace Brandon Aiyuk. Now, obviously, you can talk about, what does that look like? You're not going to know until the year's over with. But I do think that you want to keep Jauan as the number 2, and you're hoping that Pearsall can grow in year 2 and maybe lead to pushing Aiyuk further out the door if you want to save money. Because you had DeMarcus Robinson there for another year after this season, so you have him for 2 years. Was kind of a hint towards something changing. Some thought that was Jauan Jennings being gone, which maybe it is. But to me, that could be another sign Aiyuk could be gone once this year's over. But a lot of that hinges on Pearsall's progress, not Jauan Jennings whatsoever. But I do think if you sign Jauan Jennings, it does kind of push and lean towards the Aiyuk trade rumors heating back up and becoming a much more real thing as next offseason comes closer, if you will. One final update two final updates I want to get to. The first one being Ben Bartch. Ben Bartch, like Ricky Pearsall, was put on the NFI list. Pearsall is on the PUP list. Bartch on the NFI list, which means he got hurt away from the team facility. We didn't know what that was, how serious it was. Again, just kind of came out of nowhere. But according to John Lynch, it is a quad injury for Ben Bartch. But like Pearsall, he's not supposed to miss a large chunk of time, should be back in the next week or so. So a lot of the overreaction from including myself saying this could be a bad thing for San Francisco, that does still exist if somebody else goes down or even Ben Bartch re-aggravates the injury. Good to know that it seems like it's not a big deal, and it seems like that things will get cleared up pretty quickly with him, and they'll have their starting offensive line, ready to go on the field together for the beginning of training camp the next week or so. Before I get to the final update of today, that being Diamador Lenoir's legal troubles, I want to ask you kindly to go to our audio podcasting platform, whether it is Spotify, whether it is, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, doesn't matter. Go there, give us a 5-star audio podcast review. It's the freest, cheapest, and easiest way to help the show out. I really appreciate it. I want to hit over 100 podcast reviews. It's a high goal. Maybe it's too high for a small show like ourselves, but I don't want to diminish the impact we can have in the community. So go to the Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, give us a 5-star review, or at least tell us what you think of the show, what we can do better, what we're doing that you don't want to see go away. But I do want to kindly ask you, if you can, the community itself, the faithful, leave us a 5-star audio podcasting review, and hope we can get there by the beginning of week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. We have 1 month-ish away. Can we get to 100? It's a lot. It's a lofty goal, but I trust you out there, the listeners, the watchers. I appreciate you and everything you do for me and the show. You guys mean so much to me, and hope you can show some love back in the audio podcast reviews. But let's get to Diamador Lenoir, because in a quiet off season where things felt like it was going to be a snooze fest, where nothing really happened, there was 2 incidents that were eye-catching, eye-popping, and we all said, really? The first one was being Jauan Jennings wanting a new contract, maybe asking for a trade, which never happened. The second one was Diamador Lenoir getting arrested for, how do you even describe what he did? He was thrown the keys to a car, then threw them to somebody else. I think it was obstruction of justice was what he got kind of hit for double parked cars and not moving them. I'm not sure exactly, the severity of what could that be, but it's not going to lead to a suspension most likely. He was released the very next day, so even the law was like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And nothing really seemed to be that big of a deal. Even the firearm he had, I don't think was his. It was the person he was with, which I don't think they can get Lenoir for that, but maybe, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But John Lynch did give us some insight today by really not giving us insight today. And he said this: we talked to Demo, of course, we would prefer our players not get involved in those type of things, but I think that as a legal matter, it'll work itself out. We've got a lot of faith in Demo, who he is as a person and what he stands for. And to that I say, I don't think there's any need to worry. If you are, not sure if you are, but whenever you see a player on your team, whether good or bad, get arrested, your mind goes, uh-oh, what could that mean? And for a player of Lenore's caliber, being an all-pro or should be all-pro cornerback, this team's number one cornerback, getting paid big money during the year last season with an extension for 5 years, you don't want to see that being what happens to him in the first off season where he's carrying a bigger bag of money in his back pocket. But you can tell the way John talked about it, it didn't seem like he was too bothered about it or bothered by what was going to happen. I think that that kind of small sentence there for a legal matter, I think it'll work itself out. That is a roundabout way of saying, what are we going to do? Like, what can we do? And I think that was kind of him diminishing what actually transpired. I know many of you out there said the cop has had kind of a, stuck up nose and whatnot, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes, people are good, people are bad, but without knowing what actually transpired and being there, I'm not going to assume. But it does seem like that the law or the ramifications of what Lenore did are not going to be that big. If anything, maybe a fine. But again, John Lynch downplayed it. The police downplayed it. If anything, the person Lenore was with will get hurt or pop for more than he did. So I wouldn't look too much into it. I don't even think it's really worth looking into. I wouldn't be shocked to hear about in a couple of months or so, Lenore gets probation or maybe faces a fine, but it's not going to end in jail time or it's not going to end in like a felony. Like none of that's going to happen. It's going to be very simple and things should end. I don't think San Francisco views it as like, when I think of arrests under the Lynch and Shanahan regime, my mind goes to Charles Omenihu. And the way they handled that was, we're not going to change anything and do anything until the law takes, their time and they can go through things and they can kind of, go through their process. So granted, Omenihu was accused of much worse than Lenore was, but I do think that San Francisco will wait and let things play themselves out before even talking or thinking about, suspending him or fining him money. But it does seem like that's all being downplayed and really isn't that big of a deal for the organization. Hoping that's the case going forward, but tell me down below in the comments, what do you think about Brandon Aiyuk's recovery? Do you still think he may come back by week 1? Or are you optimistic that can happen? What do you think about Ricky Pearsall's injury? Do you think it's really serious and we should all be a little more worried than we actually are? And what about Jauan Jennings? Do you think San Francisco and the receiver get a deal done before week 1 of the NFL preseason? Tell us down below in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Leave us the 5-star audio podcast review. Follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And use that promo code right here, 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. I want to thank Papa J, Cowwood Chipto, Tommy Huxley, who else is up in here? Strawberry Reacts, Penor, and many more in the YouTube comments. Thank you so much for your comments and tuning in. And until next time, my name is Sterling Bennett. Gonna come back at you very, very soon tomorrow. Niners' first day of training camp. Gonna react to it right here on the channel and may have something else in store for you as the first week of training camp begins, with my top 5 bold predictions coming your way very, very soon for the training camp season. But as always, my name is Sterling Bennett, and until next time, stay faithful.